What up, what up, what up, good people? Welcome to a brand new edition of Whatever We Want with J and K. He is J Jamal Sterling.
She is K Kalala Elliott. What's up, K?
Hey, well, happy belated birthday to the birthday boy.
Just more age. Slower, older.
I want to talk to you about that, but I know we got a lot of stuff for the benefit of our audience. We're recording on April 16th. Hopefully by the time you hear this, you will also have heard the first 2 episodes of what we are considering part 2 of season 3 of the show. So we have a lot of news to get to. I don't want to hold this up. I did want to acknowledge my good brother's birthday, but let's get to it, man. It's your birthday weekend. So you tell me what's hot on your plate right now.
All right. Well, you brought this up a long time ago. We never got to it. Top 50 rappers according to Billboard.
Let me tell you why this is so. Go ahead and bring this up, but I actually had something I wanted to talk about in the world of rap. So this is interesting. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's go.
I looked over the whole list this morning because I hadn't looked over the list. And do we dare go through the whole list, or do
Sir, we'll be here yelling at people for forever. How about this? How about we first of all, we need to dedicate a show to this topic. I want you to know. So I think we should circle back and get in the weeds during Black Music Month. But yeah, let's get it. Let's go. Let's maybe the top 5.
Top 5. All right, let's go top 5.
That's controversial.
Number 5 coming in at number 5. Eminem at number 5, coming in number 5.
Respectable. I don't know if I would agree, but respectable. That's one of those that could easily be debated one way or the other. So it's not an obvious that shouldn't be there to me.
My argument on Eminem has always been, I like Eminem. I've never liked an Eminem album. I've always liked a few songs. I've never liked a whole album ever. Lyrically, he is one of the greatest MCs of all time. I'll give him that.
I agree.
Number 4, Tupac.
You and I have had this conversation on this show about my reversal of opinions in terms of where I place Tupac in the zeitgeist of great rappers. I definitely think he's up there, but I don't think I would put him. I know I wouldn't put him in my top 5 anymore.
Okay, dope. I think I'm kind of the same opinion, though. I think Me Against the World may be one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time, but I don't think he's a top 5 MC for me. Now, there's a lot of people all over who's listening to this and all over the internet who just rolled their eyes so hard that they went out of skull.
And they can go back and listen to some of our previous discussions. I have been the resident diehard Tupac flag wearing fan waving the flag member here of the two of us. And like I said, we mentioned on a previous show where I've had to go back and revisit his work in the greater scheme of the conversation of hip hop and rap specifically. And I tend to think about him more as a collective artist, just generally speaking, beyond the world of hip hop. And so when I look at it in that context, yeah, he is one of those unquestionable folks. But when I look at him in the canon of everybody else in hip hop, it gets harder and harder for me to justify him being in that top 5. Top 10, you could make an argument, I think, especially for our generation of hip hop fans, but there's too many other folks fighting to me to be at the top, to put him in the top 5. And I know that's controversial, but
100%. So
that's
number 3, yeah, right. Number 3, Nasty Nas. Jones.
I mean, if you go have a top 3, Nas ain't hard to put in there. I don't see how Nas isn't in anybody's top. Like, he has to be top 5. In the top 5. If for no other reason, and this is, I'm about to get into the topic that was my first topic, but I'm gonna hold it just a little bit. But I just want to say, longevity means a lot in any form of entertainment, but in the world of hip hop, it's almost impossible to achieve. Right. And if for no other reason, I mean, we could talk all day about his abilities as a lyricist. We could talk about his beat. First of all, being able to hold multiple beefs and to be able to hold your weight and defeat people in those multiple beefs. There are a ton of reasons he should be in the top 3, let alone the top 5. But the longevity piece alone, and I don't mean longevity just in lasting, but in being a hit maker in the midst of that. For
his last 2 albums,
plus years,
his last 2 albums are 2 of his greatest albums.
And not just critically acclaimed, but in terms of record sales.
Right.
So
he actually did. Yeah. So he's number 2. Kendrick Lamar.
So, this is where
I'm scared of what you're going to say now.
It's hard for me to put Kendrick that high. Not because I don't think he's talented enough. I need to see him to stick around a little longer. Before. I mean, I just think about all the greats.
Here's my thing with Kendrick, and I would have been in that agreement. I would have been in that category, except it could be argued that every single Kendrick album is a classic album.
Oh, without question. Yeah, that ain't a question.
So can we name another hip hop artist where their first 4 albums are like, damn, like they literally one name down?
No, I can't. I honestly did this right off the top. Yes. Now I can say there are some in retrospect we've gone back and made them, but right out the gate, no. But I also think that is a hard metric to judge everyone against, because so many things are different now, right? Like when you got someone like a Rakim, who at the point in which Rakim was at the height of his fame, there was no internet, there was no social media. You know, there are a lot of devices and mechanisms that help a Kendrick Lamar. And again, not to knock his talent, that ain't even a question to me, but that allow the amplification of their music in a way that I just can't go by record sales and even acclaim, because I just feel like there's greater opportunity for exposure than say some of the earlier folks. So for me, it's hard to use that as I'm not saying you shouldn't weigh it, but to make it a metric that has greater weight than artistry in comparison to other folks, it's hard for me.
Yeah, I would. It's hard to put them for me. It's hard because I know history, but at the same time, I go Kendrick deep now, and shit, the music is so dense. It's so well done.
You'd say top 3?
I just can't see how he's a rhyme, what they call back in the day, a rhyme animal. Like they used to call cannabis the rhyme animal, or Busta Rhymes a rhyme animal. This dude he is rhyme. So he's a walking poet.
Yeah. See, but here's the thing. Here's the challenge I have with that. That was the same argument that was made for Pac, right? He was a poet. Now we could argue the success or what have you, but Kendrick also comes in a much more palatable packaging than Pac ever came in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I don't know. I just I don't know. That's hard for me.
Well, number one,
but I love Kendrick. He's the bomb.
So number one, you probably can guess by now because we have not said his name, is the one Jay-Z.
Well, that's funny because there was another Billboard list where he wasn't even on it. Like he wasn't in the top 10,
which is insanity. But
it's funny. For the folks who argue that he shouldn't be number one, I understand the argument that he shouldn't be number one. But I'm hard pressed to, whenever I hear that, I'm saying, so who's your number one?
Right.
Because to me, Jay is one of the few artists who embody all of those. We've been calling out individual metrics with each of these folks that we just mentioned in the top 5. So far, off the top of my head, he's the only one who embodies all of them. Like he's the only one I can think of off the top of my dome who checks all those boxes.
Right.
Of being an in-depth lyricist who can, and when I say lyricist, I want to be clear. Jay-Z to this day can write a rhyme that it will take you 20 minutes to dissect. You go back and like, oh wait, he did this, and then this was an entendre, and then this was a pun, and then this was a that. That's, to me, one of the things that has always drawn me to Jay is he's witty.
Right.
Like, and I don't think that a lot of people, he's a thinking man's rapper is what I mean. Like he's the regular everyday man for most folks, but he's also so intelligent that his lyrics are nuanced. That every time it's like watching an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Every time you hear it, you find something new.
Right.
And not to mention his success as a businessman. That's obvious, but that can't be discounted because his whole platform has been an elevation of hip hop in general. Right. Like a lot of the present day, I'm not just laying it at Jay's feet, but a lot of the present day 21st century success of hip hop can be directly tied to Jay's efforts, whether it's through Def Jam, Rock Nation, his dealings with alcohol company. Like he is a brand.
Right.
And there's a gift and talent in being able to do that and still maintain some authenticity with your original audience. I'm hard pressed to find another example.
Like in my head, you know, my argument is always that Rakim's the greatest rhymer of all time.
Point blank
great, and the reason great.
He set the standard for what we listen to today.
Literally, all basis of rap
Yeah.
there's a before and after
Post,
Rakim.
yeah.
So Rakim is not even number one to me. He's like in another level. He's in another stratosphere.
I feel like he's like, you have a president, like when president emeritus, when they retire, like they're so associated with that thing that you continue to break. That's me. I don't even include him in these lists because I'm like, he's Rakim. We wouldn't have any of this without him.
He's the original god of rap, and everybody else is striving to be.
Yeah.
So I know we're not gonna get deep into it, but there's a lot of problems with this list of like Ice Cube is pissed about the list. I'm pissed at certain parts. Where is he on the list? Ice Cube is like almost in the 30s.
Yo, Kanye NWA in general, and I'm one of those folks who was not like a huge NWA fan early on, but I will just say just their contribution to the West Coast. I was like, there is no West Coast rap without NWA, including Dre and Cube. So, all you need to know about this list. On this list, Kanye West is rated higher than Andre 3000. So is Nicki Minaj. So is Snoop Dogg. Wait, what?
So is Drake. These are the rhymers that are rated ahead of Andre 3000.
Drake shouldn't even be on this list. As hard as you go on Drake, and I usually just kind of try and protect him a little bit, Drake should not, when they're talking about the greatest rappers alive or period ever, Drake should not even come up in discussion.
Rakim and LL are 13 and 14. J. Cole's 15. You get some ridiculous ones further. 50 Cent is number 17, rated above Ice Cube.
First of all,
50 Cent is rated above Ice Cube.
I will give 50 his props as a producer. While I'm not necessarily in his target audience, I think what he has managed to do with his as a producer, a television and film producer, phenomenal. Hats off. Yeah. But rapping, nah, bro, we ain't doing this. I'm gonna put him right where I put Drake. Like a couple of party anthems does not a great rapper make you.
Yeah, so like it's a bunch of problems. Further down this list, where they got my boy at? Hold on. They got like Most Def and Black Thought. Black Thought is 28. Mm-hmm. Lauryn Hill is 30. T.I. is rated above Busta Rhymes. But
except Lauryn Hill being that low in the rankings, if some of these other ones were not so atrocious, you know what I mean? Right. Like there's an argument to be made that L Boogie, only has one, album.
He has one album.
You know what I'm saying? So you can make that argument, but when you got 50 Cent in the top 20, sir, I'm not even trying to engage you in this conversation.
In what rhyme list do you have Most Def at 36 and 50 Cent in the top 15? Get out of here. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I was gonna say we're doing it. So this is we should go ahead to Black Music Month. We're gonna save this list.
Yeah, we got to go. We need to
into the weeds.
You know what we might need to do? This might just need to be our entire show. We might need to do a couple episodes in June that are just
music episodes,
and maybe we can bring some folks on, some musicologists and some other folks, some angry hip hop fans.
Young Dave Kravitz, we need to get him on here.
For sure. So, yeah. I'm glad you did tee this story up though, because it fits nicely with it. Folks, I promise y'all, we do not talk to each other about what our show topics are, but it's funny because I'm gonna play a clip for you and then I'm gonna talk to you on the other side of this clip. So give me 1 second.
We get some technology up in here. Let's go.
Don't say nothing because when you draw attention to it, that's when it gets messed up. So I'm gonna play this and then you talk to you on the other side of it.
What you personally feel.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you pointed that out because even just the origin of the word hip hop, first you have to be hip. And the older you get further away from the hipness. I mean, you can know what's going on, but there's always new slang, there's always new rhythms, new patterns, all that kind of stuff. And once you start trying to imitate that thing, I mean, people see it, man, and it becomes embarrassing at a point. And this is just my personal opinion. Like just feel like I, wouldn't have much to offer, to the game after a certain point. It's like being a boxer.
So that was just a clip of an interview that Andre 3000 had, I think back in 2017 with GQ magazine. And essentially, just to recap, the point of the question that he was asked was about the lack of new music he's made. He has notoriously, not notoriously, but it's pretty well known that he essentially hasn't dropped any new music. And in the course of this interview, they were asking him about that. And he was like, I tinker. He's like, I play around a little bit, but I just don't feel like there's anything significant or special. Basically, he's like, it's not good enough to drop anything. But then he goes on to make another point, which is where I wanted to get into with you, considering your birthday weekend. And that was to say that as he's gotten older, as a member of the hip hop community, his feeling is, he was like, the first word in hip hop is hip. And he was like, I feel like as you age, you naturally, basically, essentially, he's asserting that as you age, you naturally become less aware of what's happening in the culture. Therefore, you are less hip. Therefore, you have less things to contribute to the conversation. And therefore, this results in someone like him saying, I'm falling away, which is interesting, because as we just kind of talked about, rap is historically known to be a genre of music where it's a young person's game, so to speak. It's like you get in, you make a few hits, and then you kind of fade away. The joke is you don't want to be the old man in the club, so to speak.
Right.
And so, but I'm curious to know, you and I and all of our friends are now, or I won't even say approaching, we are firmly in middle age, right? Like if we're lucky, we might live to be 90 or older than 90. If that's the case, we're in part 2 of our lives.
Right.
So I'm curious when I hear, and obviously he's an artist, so he has a different take on it, but I'm curious to know, as someone who just crossed another milestone in your 40s, when you hear someone who's essentially our age, who's saying, I feel like I need to kind of fall back, fall out, I'm curious to how you approach midlife. And especially even, I'll go a step further. In the context of music, there's that question, but then just in the grand scheme of life, I'm curious to know your thoughts about that.
I feel like it's separate. It's separate for everybody. Like I've heard that first of all, the thing that's frustrating about Andre 3000 that he'll say something like that, and then like I would say the last 3 years, Andre 3000 has had a guest verse on a song that has been the best verse of the year.
That's better than the rest of the entire song.
Like his verse on "Life of the Party," the Kanye West album. It is one of the best verses I've ever heard. I would say in the last 5 years of putting of wordplay, of dropping knowledge on it. And that's from the guy who says, yeah, we out of
well, see, what he says in this interview, when he said in subsequent interviews, is it's not that he doesn't continue to make music. He was like, I got a ton of music. Like, that's not the question. But it doesn't feel, it's not up to his standards. And he's very honest in saying, and I think it's really refreshing to be honest in this way, that he was like, I kind of suffer from a confidence issue in terms of, I was fortunate enough to really have this monumental success early in my career. But he also, notes that even that felt, I don't know how to explain it, but he essentially talks about how he never really felt like he was good enough even back then. And so he basically he was a grinder is what it is. He was like, I didn't think I was good enough. He suffered from imposter syndrome. So he worked way harder than most folks, but it also took him out of his natural, Andre is like my spirit animal in the sense that like, he's very, very spiritual. He's very like out of this world. So he, moves with whatever his energetic flow is. If he's feeling like, no, it's taking up too much of my energy, will pull back, which is the antithesis of a culture and a community. And I'm talking about hip hop, where there's an emphasis on production or productivity. There's an emphasis on make that money, hustle, grind. That's totally opposite to that culture, which is, if I don't feel motivated and creative and I don't feel energetically in the space to produce something, then I don't. So I think
my personal feeling on that is I think it's to each his own, in the sense that, Sade takes 10, 15 years to make an album, and it's because that's what space she's in.
Yep.
But then you have some of these artists, especially some of these younger artists, who are like, you have these younger artists who are first required to have an album out in a certain amount of time because they don't have the
they got to maintain relevance.
Right. And then you have
short attention spans now.
I mean, we were talking about Kendrick Lamar earlier. We have artists like Kendrick Lamar who notoriously had a gigantic block before this last album he made, which was like really, so he went to Africa and tried to clear his mind and try to find a new space to make music. So I think as far as of course, in youth, there's vigor, there's, brand new ways of looking at things. So they bring a whole new perspective to some of the art, which I do love. But also with age, there can be a combination of both, where an artist, and like I think about, because I'm notoriously biased, the last Tribe Called Quest album, which managed to blend that gap of old and new. You can see old cats learning from younger cats that they brought on their albums and melding it into something that was magical, you know?
Right.
Or I think of, and just because I'm on that trip because of De La, listening to the last like 3 De La albums and seeing the evolution of them and them being so secure in their artistry that they're really like, I'm going to go in from this totally different direction. Dude, the last De La album has fucking David Byrne from Talking Heads on.
Oh wow.
You know, like it's totally eclectic, totally wild, and a chance that they can take because they're 50-year-old rappers.
Right.
So I think the whole point is saying, like, I really feel Andre 3000 walking around, you know, random airports with a giant clarinet playing music because he's earned that space.
Right.
Earned that space, you know. So I feel like that artistry is just where you are in the moment, you know.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump to another topic that's somewhat related, and then I'll throw it back to you. Speaking of getting older, so you and your wife adopted a little baby girl, and she just turned 3 months old, and my other goddaughter, and we have a joke amongst ourselves about like the fact that if y'all had realized that y'all were gonna be this old when adopting her, then maybe you would have rethought the timing, right? and of course it's a joke, it's all well meant. We love and adore her. She's the perfect addition to y'all's family. But it raised a flag for me because I was watching a news clip recently where Hoda Kotb was talking about being mom shamed, about this idea that she literally has received multiple letters, but some of them personalized, like literally written in people's handwriting, sent to her home, saying it was incredibly selfish of her to decide to have a baby. She is, so let me back up. Hoda is 58, I believe now. Okay. In 2017, when she was 53, she adopted her first daughter, and then 2 years later, she adopted a second child. So she was 52 and 54 when she adopted her children. And people have, you know, taken her to task for that, for selfishly adopting children later in life because insert your reason why. So I'm curious, as a later in life parent, or getting started later in life parent, your perception about that. And then just also generally speaking, your experiences as someone who has made this decision to, you know, bring another person into your home and raise another child. I hate saying this late in life, but later in life than a lot of people do. Yeah.
All right. So one thing, people who are adding rich ass Hoda Kotb. I'm sorry, Hoda Kotb makes several $1 million a year.
If she dropped dead tomorrow, that kid would still be fine.
Bro, can Hoda Kotb, can she adopt me? She can afford to adopt me.
This is the wrong hill to die on, y'all.
The internet is a horrible, horrible place. Yeah.
It's so also the same place that's like, children need homes.
Right.
Like women shouldn't be able to do what they want with their bodies, but you know what? You can't adopt them if you're too old. Like, what
stop. So first thing I'll say, and I think this is important just because me and my wife have been blessed to share this testimony, not to sound too gospel-y, but
praise the Lord.
Amen. It's a Sunday. But yo, real talk, there are so many children in the system. There's so many children in the system without parents. So many children, you know,
especially children of color.
So and there's a perfect like a Venn diagram here that could happen of me and you've talked a bunch of times before about fertility issues within the Black community specifically, but fertility issues with women and how women, a lot of people suffer in silence about fertility issues. I know my wife did. It's so what my feeling on that is that there is this perfect opportunity to really, really open your home to people who actually to a child who has a need. You know,
right.
My boy Cliff, one of my favorite people on earth. We were at the when you did my best friend Kalila threw us the greatest baby shower in the history of humanity. It was a lot into it, but it's beautiful. But at that baby shower, he walked up to me. He's like, "Yo, this kid, man, has won the lottery, dude." and I say that in the sense that, like, you know, the kid went from being put into a system to being into a household that can provide for them. Mm-hmm. And there are kids
with people who love her, adore her. Yeah.
So and there are people from ages, you know, from literally 1 month to 17 years old who need families. I've seen these kids as a teacher. I've seen these kids in our communities when I go back to Detroit and New Orleans and wherever I go. So I feel like it's very, 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 very important, particularly if you have the means, to open your mind to the idea that maybe this child or a child could be blessed by what you can provide for them. So I say that to say the late in life parenting thing, there's this thing I was talking to a friend the other day about it. I use the analogy of a basketball player. So like think of somebody like I think of LeBron James for right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
LeBron James is a freak of nature, but there's one thing that happens with every athlete from 27 to like 33 is where their physical talents meet up with their mental capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as a parent, my physical talents are falling off a little bit, but my mental capacity is there. My mental capacity is at the highest it's ever been.
Yes.
But my physical. So I know technically the things I used to freak out over with India at age 33, I know at age 45, 46 is like, oh, here's what I do. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little slower.
Yeah. But you know what's funny? I feel like nature responds to that because even though your child is adopted, it's almost, I keep telling people, God will provide because your baby could not be better suited for where you all are in your life. Like she's very chill.
She's the chillest baby.
Low maintenance. I have been around a lot of babies in my life. I don't like to say she's a good baby. She's a bad baby because not because that whole notion that all babies are good, but there are babies who are easier to manage, and your kid is way easier to manage than most children.
The thing I've never seen before with a baby, I'm gonna brag on my baby, yo.
Yeah, she's.
But the thing I've never seen with a baby that happens with this baby is that the baby, she's probably cried less than 5 times.
Right.
I mean, yeah, she
and it's not because she doesn't have the ability to. It's just not how she gets down.
Yeah,
she's just like, it's not that deep.
She'll yell at you. Oh, yes. She's very much a strong black woman already. Like, give me this bottle now, damn it. Like she does not cry, no tears. Like, it's like,
yeah. She's like I don't know how best to, you know what's funny too, it's interesting because both of your children are very mild-mannered. India is mild-mannered, and of the two of them, she's the more boisterous one, but even in her natural disposition, India is very easygoing. So I keep going back to children get the parents that they need, when all things being equal, you know what I'm saying? Right. And so I completely agree with you. It's interesting too, because, as you talk about it, I've been very candid about my own fertility issues and struggles and the decision whether or not to be a mother. And I keep wavering, going back, I'm too old or whatever. But seeing you all do it has been encouraging for so many reasons, because I see how hard it is. But I also see it's manageable. Like, it's you all are managing it. Like, it's not. I have yet to see you all reach a point going where someone on the outside going, I didn't know marriage this. Like, it's never. I've never seen that stage, and I think that's that speaks to the reality of being an older parent, that there are benefits to being older, like, financial stability. That's huge. Right. Like not having the stress of wondering where your money is coming from, added to trying to raise a child, is significant. And then, like you said, just being more grounded in knowing who you are. It's a lot easier to parent a person when you understand yourself more. Like I think of Kalila now, I would be I'm a much better aunt. I'm a much better godparent. Like being around India in the last 5 years, I'm a better godmother to her today than I was 5 years ago.
100%. 100%. Yeah. See,
but
it's a lot of, we have this whole theme of age in the show today.
I mean, listen, we may as well embrace it. We may as well lean into it. So what else you got going on in your world?
Okay, so I gotta bitch about some stuff.
No, we got to.
All right, so first let's talk about I'm gonna bring this up just because we try not to beat a dead horse on this show, but if the story needs to be moved forward, the story needs to be moved forward. Rumors of Marvel Studios to replace Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror.
Oh, wow.
So according to reports, rumors of Marvel Studios having a contingency plan to replace Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror has surfaced. During an appearance on the Hot Mic podcast, Marvel insider Jeff Snyder shared that the actor could be replaced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe following his assault allegations. There's rumors of him being replaced by possibly Damon Idris of Snowfall fame. Now, ladies and gentlemen, me and Kev stated vigorously on the show, we have no idea what Jonathan Majors did. We don't know the truth of any of this thing. I do know one thing. This is the first time something's happened with him.
First time something has been brought to the public's attention, for sure.
However, if I go over to the other side of the road,
you about to bring up Ezra Miller.
A timeline of Ezra Miller's recent controversies.
I do want to say before you go through Ezra's before you read Ezra's mail, I do want to say it is a different studio. I just want to say,
100%.
and to be fair, I anytime you place me in a position to defend Disney, it automatically goes, come on, Jamal. But what I will say is most people's frustration with the whole way in which Ezra Miller's situation was handled was that it was not dealt with. So I will say, if Marvel should make a decision to treat Jonathan to manage this differently than DC did, that's actually a good thing, because the bad thing about the Ezra Miller situation is it should have been handled and managed far better than it was. And so we can't have it both ways. We can't say that they should have given him a tougher run and then say, but we don't want y'all to give Jonathan a tougher run.
All I'm saying is equality. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And I don't disagree. Yeah. I just want to be clear that it's a different studio, so we can't it's not necessarily apples to apples.
But we can do it in the same. It's the same systematic white racist structure.
Oh, absolutely. Generally speaking, and I would even say the public perception. I will even go a step further and agree with you on that respect.
Right. Yeah. Like literally, we've been in this Jonathan Majors thing for about a month and a half, 2 months now.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Ezra Miller, I mean, I'm looking at like 7 things here. You know, and we're not talking about accusations. We're talking about charges.
Oh, Ezra is a
second-degree assault. We're talking about restraining orders filed, disorderly conduct, harassment, messages about the Ku Klux Klan.
But you know what I will say? This speaks to. I continue to go back to for better for worse. Not even for better for worse. I think that even in rejection, there are great lessons and gifts that you can receive, and so. What I view as a rejection, my experience at Disney, I learned a lot of things. And one thing that I learned in terms of the things that they do well, and one of the things that I believe that they do quite well is crisis management. Right. And part of crisis management is, I'll give you a perfect example. Do you remember who was the first Captain War before Don Cheadle?
Oh, Terrence Howard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but that was one and done, right? Like, so it had one little bit of controversy with Terrence. Terrence goes bye-bye, right?
But Terrence wanted his money, and that
I understand that. No. But here's where I was going, which is Marvel and Disney in general are very good at anticipating when there will be drama, whatever that drama may be, whether it's a salary dispute or criminal charges or whatever, and as opposed to waiting until that thing happens and then responding to it, they start putting a game plan in place. So case in point, I point to the Terrence Howard thing. I say the Idris scenario or the comparison of possibly teeing someone up in the event that Jonathan is not available is smart business practice and honestly on brand for what they always do, which is, and I will go a step further. Even the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe is designed, they are smart enough to not let everything rest on any one character, even the villain. Like when you think about the first couple of phases of the Marvel Universe, we had the big bads, and then we have another big bad. Like there's always another big bad coming. So even though Kang is supposed to be he's supposed to be the Thanos in this universe. If they're forced to, they can easily divert the story, which is the genius of how they've constructed this universe, which is there's always more big bad villains to pull into the conversation. So,
but my inkling here is that Robert Downey Jr. showed his ass during some of these shows early on in his process. Oh yeah, Iron Man would not have been replaced.
Yeah, but his criminal issue happened long before. He redeemed himself.
But what I'm saying, I'm talking about now. I'm talking about right now. If Robert Downey Jr. had gotten in some trouble during those things, I would submit to you that he would not be as replaceable.
Maybe, but you can't make an argument for what could have since it didn't. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because he did historically have a person. He also had a track. So maybe that's your point. He had a track record.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
I mean, let's be clear. They are far more forgiving of white folks than they ever will be of black folks. We know that. That ain't even the question.
And that's the whole point.
Honestly, I was waiting for Letitia Wright to get a pink slip when all of the stuff around the pandemic, her commentary around the vaccine was. I legit was like, sis might want to chill out before she lose that check. Like I legit was concerned for her.
Yeah, but it just strikes me this whole is like, wow, how different these things are being handled. And I guess separate studios still, but same stupid structure.
Oh yeah.
And I don't see any way they would replace Captain America after the second movie.
Well,
if he
but
does something
again,
stupid.
he's not the hero. He's the villain, so he's a lot easier to replace. You know what I mean? Like that's one. It's easier to replace a villain than it is your protagonist. But also, I keep going back to we can't have it both ways. We can't judge them because we can't say we want you to judge Ezra Miller or anybody who would be doing potentially criminal behavior, and then say, but not this time. not with Jonathan. The one after Jonathan, we can't do it both ways. Like it, and again, they haven't made any decisions. They are waiting. They're having a contingency plan, which anybody who has billions of dollars riding on a project, I would encourage you to have a contingency plan. It'd be terrible crisis management for them to not be considering all of their options.
Yeah. But Ezra Miller still gets to do a bunch of movies.
Listen, you're not gonna get me to defend Ezra Miller at DC Studios. You are not.
As I said, Ezra Miller gets
I
to
agree.
do.
It's
yeah.
I'm trying to curse less, but I really want to say what I want to say. Fatima's favorite word. It's shitty. It's shitty.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Moving on. Ezra Miller gets to make more movies. What else here? Okay. So wait. I love this headline with all my heart. Hold on, let me get
What's that?
Prominent Black professionals sue Hulu over 94 Freaknik documentary release. This is my favorite headline of all time.
What's on the documentary?
For
the benefit of our non-Black audience who is not around from 1985 to 1995, would you please tell folks
way back in the day, ladies and gentlemen, before the internet, before that was
Coachella,
before there was camera phones, and then in the late 80s, early 90s, there's this thing called Freaknik, where basically in Atlanta, a bunch of Black people during spring break would go ahead and pilgrimage down to Atlanta.
White people went to Florida and they acting wild and crazy during spring break. Black folks went to Atlanta.
Yeah, but yeah, we talk about Freaknik now. So Freaknik, 94, Black people went pilgrimage down to Atlanta. And they had the time of their lives. I'm sure that there are videos of asses being shown and all types of things.
Twerking on cars, dropping it low.
Hulu has decided to make a documentary about it. And some Black people, let me read the beginning here. The release of Hulu's documentary about 94 Freaknik celebrating its upcoming 30th anniversary has Gen X up in arms. Many of the 90s college students are now in their 40s and 50s. And they got
they're like, no, you can't go to Coachella. It's just a bunch of drugs being done and people having sex in tents. I'm not supporting that foolishness.
So a group of prominent Black professional women plan to sue the streaming company and block the film's release. Based on concerns about what could potentially be exposed, they're filing a lawsuit in Atlanta's federal court against Hulu. The women are saying it is unlawful because they did not sign media releases.
And honest to goodness, they might not. That piece right there, if they didn't sign releases and their names are shown, unless, and here's how they get you. And I say they being, I'm part of the they. I always tell people, if you don't look around and pay attention, a lot of these major events, there are postings everywhere that says these things are being recorded.
Right.
But just because you didn't see it or acknowledge it or sign something, if like, for example, we used to do like we would do events with like Live Nation or whatever when I worked at the Apollo, and every single audience member who came in there didn't sign a waiver. But if we had signs posted that says that this is a recorded event,
right?
That's you signing a waiver, friend.
Yeah.
So if there was postings anywhere, even if it was like in the newspaper that was like, well, let me not say that. I'm getting into legal areas that's not my expertise, but I will say if there is a reasonable amount of information shared that says that this is being recorded, you lose claims to anonymity.
What it seems to be right now is that several people have various videos. They've taken their various videos,
home videos
and stuff, and names I do not think are attached yet. But you may see your aunt or your grandma or your mama doing some wild stuff. I didn't say.
Huh?
Go ahead.
I said, this is interesting to me because I think it speaks to my I don't know, approach to life, moral philosophy, it's really not that big a deal, y'all. You were in college. Like, part of the thing that I think there are a few things here, right, that are worth delving deeper into. First of all is, I question, what is your panic about people seeing you being a young person, exploring your sexuality or having fun or having a good time, other than now you are in a season in life where you are against those things or you preach something different. And so you don't want that version of yourself to be on display. I would argue acknowledging the fact that you have, I don't even want to say a past, but that was part of your life experience. What is the big deal other than showing that you had that experience?
To be on a technical basis, by filing a lawsuit, ain't you putting yourself on blast?
That too, because that's public record. You letting us know. But so there's that, which is the commonsensical part of it. But I keep going back to and this is one of those things that I think, especially generationally speaking, there's a big divide within the Black community about what your college experience is supposed to be or look like. And we put a lot of, and I understand why there are double standards. We don't live in the same world that white people live in, right? But white kids go to college and it is expected for them to experiment. It is expected for them to go and try stuff and figure things out and explore their sexuality and all these other things. And when Black kids do it, there's shame attached to it. And I'm like, if y'all would just get over these ridiculous standards that you put on yourself and then impose on other people, and acknowledge that at 18, 19 years old, that's what you're doing. You're figuring life out. Like, that's really what I feel like is on trial, so to speak, here, is this idea that we put all this pressure to be a certain version of perfect or display our morality in a certain way. And now this thing is going to disprove
we're not allowed to sow our royal oats.
Exactly. So I think it's silly. I also think it's very telling. I'm not on social media that much, but I have in the last couple of days gone on. And I've noticed that even the people who are like, "Oh, I'm glad I can say I didn't go," and I'm like, so even that, it's like, it's a judgment. Like, so back in the day, you would have been on the other side of that, being like, I'm not cool enough to go. So it's just kind of like, it's this never-ending competition to prove something to someone, whoever the someones are. And I just think it's silly to me.
Let me be clear that in 1992-93, I remember the upperclassmen, we're actually doing a play Dreamgirls. I think it's like 92-93. I had a small part in Dreamgirls at school. And the dude who's playing James Thunder Early, they went to Freaknik. And when the stories they came back with,
I'll bet you
we sat, like the rest of us sat crisscross applesauce, listening to the wonders of Freaknik. And I was like, one day I hope to go to Freaknik. I want to meet Uncle Luther.
And see, apparently my older sister graduated from high school in 93. So she was in that age range. And apparently she asked my parents permission to go, and they told her no. And she's one of those people now is like, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me no. And I'm sitting there like, so what? I think it's just blown out of proportion. It's really not that big a deal.
I wanted to go. I never got to go. I wanted to go. I had the money. I had a resource.
I wanted to go as a teenager. Like, I'd heard about it and I wanted to go. And honestly, by the time we got to college, I literally don't even remember anybody talking about Freaknik by the time we got to college. So,
I think
there had been like some controversy or something that caused
it got closed down. I think 96 or something like that.
So.
But I just remember being like, see, y'all don't understand. Back in the day, there was no this was word of mouth.
Yeah, I was just like, there was guerrilla marketing was literally that guerrilla marketing.
We had like 20 dudes at our school came back. Like, we went to Freaknik. We was like,
I'm just gonna say, sis, bruh, and I know it's mostly women. Y'all chill out. It was in your youth. It's not that big a deal. Honestly, if I see you, I'm gonna shout you out. It's not that deep. Let it go. You were young. Be glad you can shake your thing. Can you do it now?
Can you do it? Oh, good Lord, please don't do it now.
Somebody was like, my grandson don't want me to do it no more. See, that's really what it is. People are now grandparents, they're parents and grandparents, and all the stuff they've been lecturing their children on. They're like, oh, I'm gonna look like a hypocrite.
There's this video going around on TikTok where it's like these two dudes are watching an old Freaknik video, like, oh yeah, and he's young, he's like, oh yeah, man, look at that, all these girls got them bust. Hey, is that my auntie? Is that my mom? And then he calls his mom like, don't you judge what the hell I was doing.
You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Freaknik. Child, y'all gonna be all right. Just breathe easy. And like you said, don't file no lawsuit because now you're trying to.
I know, right? You put yourself on.
Oh.
What else you got, homie?
Oh, I got a lot, but I'm looking at the time. So maybe what we should do is start wrapping up and then save some of this for our bonus content.
Let's go for it.
Yeah. But before we do that, do you have For the Culture?
For the culture. 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 I do not have a For the Culture today, I don't think. Do you have a For the Culture?
But actually, I do have a For the Culture because, and I can't even take credit for it because it's you inspired this For the Culture. We were watching earlier this Hulu special, and I'm gonna need you to look it up. It's a new special in partnership with ABC that is about the water crisis here in the US that is primarily impacting communities of color, lower income communities. When the issue happened with Flint, Michigan, obviously everybody looked at that like that was an isolated event, and more what is happening is there's all kind of research that is uncovering that, essentially affirming what I've always known to be true, which is that there are a number of communities primarily lived in by Black and brown people and indigenous people, where their water is literally contaminated. It is toxic in some instances. And these are happening, you pointed it out, Jamal, primarily in these port cities around the country. So there's, I think Fayetteville, North Carolina was one of them. We've already mentioned Flint, Michigan. Jackson, Mississippi last year had a water crisis. So all of these major or all of these small town cities where the population is primarily Black or people of color are facing these crises. So Hulu has a show. Did you find the name of it, Jamal?
So it's Our America, Trouble on Tap. We'll start streaming April 21st and air April 22nd. ABC on Television Group working with corporations. We don't care about that. Our America on Tap will debut at Our America at BBC, abc.com. It will air. Oh, good Lord. The documentary take a look at how pollution, climate change, and aging infrastructure are making it hard to get safe drinking water in many American communities. Another thing to be said about that is that these communities are usually communities of color, communities that are poor, and they're popping up everywhere. Like after Flint happened, like you just said, you talked about this years ago when Flint first happened. Was like this going to be a whole deluge of small poor places. Now it's happened in Jackson. This other place was in South Carolina. So this is going to be a big story over the next decade of how many cities come out like this.
So the name of the show again, Jamal,
is Our America, Trouble on Tap. It's going to debut on Our America, abc.com on April 21st. It will air on ABC and Hulu starting April 22nd, which is Earth Day. So
if you don't have access to America BBC or BBC America, I should say, you can check it out on Hulu. We will link to the show as well in the show notes. So April 21st and April 22nd, you can check that out. So yeah, we like to bring y'all entertainment, but y'all know we also want to keep y'all informed. So we got a lot of work to do. One of the frontiers of social justice that often gets overlooked when we're talking about its impact on communities of color is environmental justice. Environmental racism is a very real thing. It is impacting our communities tremendously. So I don't want to add one more thing to your list, but among the other things that we need to be fighting for our communities is ensuring that we have environmental protections in place and that we have access to the same quality of water, air, what have you, as our counterparts, and that we have access to clean water and air as they do. So, well, with that, Jamal, why don't we go ahead and wind down? We'll stick around for a few more minutes for those who want to check out the bonus content. But if this is where we leave you, Jamal, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye to the people.
Peace out, y'all. Please stick around for the bonus content. If you are sticking around for the bonus content, that starts now. So remember I told you last week, I was like, I have something I wanted to bring up, but we may not have time. I would save it for overtime, so to speak. So you're a fan of Abbott Elementary, right? Have you had a chance to check out the show?
I've watched a few episodes. I'm not a big sitcom guy, but what I do
know
see
you're
is
not
funny.
Yeah. So, I'm a huge fan. And so the show continues to have great success in its second year. And it is, I think by the time this episode of our show airs, it will have aired this season's finale. But prior to that, Taraji P. Henson came on and guest starred this past week as Quinta Brunson's mother. She plays, and it's interesting because
we are old.
I honestly, so what's funny is
Taraji playing mamas now, man. Damn.
I legit and mamas to fully grown people. Like I'm used to her playing mamas, but not to like people in their 30s. So I legit, because a few people said the same thing. Like, is she old enough to do that? First of all, shout out to Taraji, because you just proven black don't crack. Yes. Because everybody's had the same reaction, which is she old enough? And but Quinta was actually on Jimmy Kimmel this past week and was talking about it and said she ran into Taraji on another show. I think it was like Jimmy Fallon Tonight Show or whatever. And Taraji literally, like most of us, is a huge fan of the show and was like, please write me a part. I'll do whatever you want me to do. When can I come on the show? And I don't know if she pitched the idea of being her mom, but Quinta was all for it. And when you actually see them on the show together, it's very great casting. But I had the same reaction too. I literally went and Googled both of them to see how old they were. And for her character, it works. Like there's a literally a 19-year age difference between the two of them. So I was like, it could work. I was like, but I ain't gonna lie, I was struggling. I was like, come on, man, we ain't. So, but anyway, where I was going with it. So she's cast in this role. But what I thought was more interesting, she was on The View about a week or two ago, and she was talking about, she's been very open about her own family and her history and struggles with mental health. She actually has a foundation. I believe it's called the Lawrence.
Is this Quinta or this?
Oh, sorry. This is Taraji. So Taraji, okay. Yeah, she actually has a. I want to make sure I say the name of it correctly. She has a foundation that is named the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation. It was launched in honor of her father, who suffered from mental health issues. But what was really interesting to me was she was on The View and she was talking about this spiritual journey she just took. She basically said she went on this eat, pray, love trip by herself to Bali, where literally she said she was having trouble accessing her own happiness. And so just went to be somewhere kind of not unlike what I did, in the sense that, like, I mean, I couldn't literally escape to another place, but shutting down social media, just going within, kind of going in hermit mode a little bit to just kind of engage with oneself and to be in a better a clearer, I think, a mental health space. But anyway, in the midst of doing that, she came out of that experience, and she and her foundation they just launched an initiative that targets Black women on HBCU campuses, so historically Black colleges and universities, starting with Alabama State University. And this initiative is done in partnership with Kate Spade. For those of you who might not be familiar, Kate Spade, huge in the fashion world. Kate Spade actually took her life, I think in 2018, not too long, either just before or right after Anthony Bourdain. It was really tragic, but her company has continued to do work around mental health. I don't know if they were doing it prior, but certainly have done so after that. But anyway, so in partnership with Kate Spade, Taraji's Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation has launched this initiative. And what's cool is they provide these mental health resources to Black women on HBCU campuses. They basically have built these pods that the young women can come into. They get free in-person therapy. They can do virtual therapy sessions. They can do yoga, sound baths, dance therapy. So essentially all of these things to really encourage mental health. And so I just wanted to shout her out. We're often asked what things we can do to help people. I would say when you see people doing good work like this, donate to those causes, donate to those charitable organizations and support them. If you know some students at ASU, encourage them to take advantage of these resources. And if you are on an HBCU campus, check it out, do some research and see if they are planning to come and pop up on your campus. So shout out to Taraji P for her work supporting the Black community and advocating for mental health, and good on her for taking care of herself before she even stepped in to help take care of other folks. I just think that's amazing.
That's dope.
Jamal, I want to give you a heads up that my laptop is about to die.
This is and it's over.
No, we can keep going, but I just want you to know if that happens. Just want you to know. So you may need to edit.
We should.
I have 19%, so I think we could probably do another 2 minutes, and then we should.
Okay. I literally, I think I'm out.
Oh, okay. Then I got another topic. So, because I think if we have one more topic, then we can.
Otherwise, it's like, why?
Yeah.
Let's talk about one thing.
In other news, I want to tell you about some scam alerts. You know, I've been on I'm turning it into Nicole. Every time I see something now, I'm sending it to people.
We're old. Watch your scams, babies.
I don't care, because now we're living in a day and age where these folks are getting incredibly, like, I'm like, if they would take that same level of energy and go get a real job or start their own company. So anyway, the latest scams, and I got a couple for you. First off, do you have one of those credit cards that you can tap on the machine to get access to your money?
Yeah. I do.
So now if you go to ATM, some of the ATMs do that. You can tap on the ATM and you don't have to touch the screen or whatever. So recently a man, and I can't remember where exactly he was, but we'll put a link in the show notes, but he went up to the ATM. Long story short, he found that when he would do that, if he didn't immediately clear, someone immediately jumped behind him, and they are able to continue to, basically, when you use your card and tap it that way, it continues to resonate with the system for a few minutes after that. So what they're encouraging you to do, if you are using your credit card, this is what the banks are encouraging you to do. You're using your credit card and you're using it at a tap machine or whatever, ATM device, whatever, is to make sure you cancel everything at the end, that you wait until the screen clears and goes back to the home screen, because these scammers are getting...
It's funny. I can see somebody listening to our podcast and now they just learned how to scam people.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
My Detroit players are like, right after they do it,
it's a little more involved. There's a technical process for it, because you still have to pull some stuff down. But I was like, you got to be kidding me. So here's the new one that had me freaking out.
And just wait till they done. As soon as they walk away, jump in their money.
Just run right up on them. So here's the next scam alert.
We're getting sued, but go ahead.
Here's the next scam alert. So have you ever been in a public space and your juice is running down on your phone and you're like, oh, here's a charging station. It's free. Let me just plug my phone up and charge it right quick.
So here's the thing. I never do that, because I'm scared to death of
what I'm about to tell you. Yeah. So I, as a general rule, also tend to plug mine into a power source, just as a general rule. Right. And I always carry, especially when I'm traveling, I bring an extra battery. Like I actually usually I'm excessive, y'all. I am team too much. I always bring 3 when I'm traveling. I bring 3 extra batteries. I bring 1 to keep in my purse. I keep 1 at the hotel, and then 1 in case those other 2 go bad. It's a lot.
She prepared.
But my phone never died. So if my phone ever died, y'all send the police. Like legit, if you ever call me and like for an hour and you can't get a hold of me, call the police, because my phone never dies. So that being said, so long story short, there's these scams now where people are creating fake covers for these charging stations, and what happens is they install these malware. Can't even talk today. Malware on these devices. So when you very innocently are at a hotel or at an airport or Starbucks or wherever and go to plug your phone in to these free charging stations, what they're doing is the what am I trying to say? The malware gets on your phone, and it either copies and replicates your phone itself, your user passwords, all of this stuff, all your account information, and it happens in a second. So what they're encouraging you to do is all those things that I just said, which is bring your own your own charger with a charger you can plug into a wall, so you can get a power source to charge your device. Or if you've previously done that, use those free charging stations, you can actually go to whoever your phone provider is, and go on their website and see what software they have that can detect if in fact you have any kind of suspicious device or have been attacked in any way. But these folks getting so creative. It's insane.
Oh, Lord.
So insane. Well, I think that's it. I think the only other thing I wanted to share with you, this is something funny to end on, Jamal. So you're a cook. You like to cook.
I like to cook. I will never be described as a cook.
No, you're a great cook. Specifically breakfast, but you're a good cook in general. But you know the value of good cooking oil, right? Like seasoned cooking oil.
Right.
So apparently there is a new issue. Pix11 out of New York. Shout out to Pix11. recently reported that there are thieves who are stealing the cooking oil from restaurants. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
There has been a rash in upstate New York, at least. There's been a rash of burglaries where literally thieves have come, and because a lot of these restaurants, not necessarily in the city of New York, but in the state of New York, they keep the drums of oil outside, like near the garage, the garbage or whatever, but they keep them outside. And so thieves have come and either drained the oil, or my battery is running low. Sorry. Either drained the oil or just stolen the barrels. So here's the gotcha. So apparently the reason they do this is because the oil can be repurposed. It can be cleaned and used for bio diesel fuel. So literally it can be used for gas. So like I think they said one barrel is the equivalent of about $150 in cash. So if you steal enough of this, then it can be very profitable. So what do you think? How much money do you think those who had cooking oil stolen from them? How much money do you think that the value of that has been over in a course of a year?
The course of a year?
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Now you say that $150 barrel. Let's go and say $2,000.
So according to, I think the Rendering Association, who are the folks who calculate these things, there is assumed to be a loss of $75 million a year from
you're talking about overall
oil. Oh,
I'm talking about per restaurant.
Oh, yeah. Like, so $75 million in losses from stolen cooking oil. So restaurants across the country have lost about $75 million of value from cooking oil that has been stolen.
See, once again, I think you've just educated the devious part of our audience. Be like, all right, get the pickup truck.
Well, I don't even know how to end. I just saw that story and was like, what the hell? This is what life has come to. People have nothing better to do. My battery is dangerously low. Like legit, it might cut off at any moment now.
This is the blackest moment in our show right here. The power's going out.
The power is going out. So I think we have I don't even know how to wrap this up.
I want to point out a second ago that you just talk about how well you do with battery power while you're traveling. Not as well when you're at home, right?
My phone. I want to be clear. The phone, not my laptop. That can go to hell. But the phone will always be charged.
Well, I'm about to call my mama to hear her tell me about exciting
some scam
things
that was run on her.
Yeah, some scam that she done fell for.
Definitely run those credit card scales for her. Make sure she hadn't fallen privy to it. So well, all right, friend. Well, happy birthday again. Welcome to the other side of 40. So because now you're closer to 50 than you are to 40.
Thanks for that. Thanks.
Milestone. That means big milestone. A black man making it to 50 is amazing in this country.
Dude, so. What I think Patrice O'Neal said in black years I'm 800 years old or something.
Oh man. Right. Well, Jamal, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye to the people.
Peace out, y'all. Thank y'all for joining us. We will see y'all next week.
Whatever We Want with J&K is produced by Chief Disruptor Productions, with post-production support by Lee George. To see the video version of this episode of Whatever We Want with exclusive extended content, be sure to subscribe to @Chief Disruptor Productions on YouTube. Stay up to date when we post new content by subscribing to the show on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Pandora, and most podcast streaming platforms. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook @Chief Disruptor Productions and share your recommendations for viewer topics. See y'all next week. Peace.